say relativity and harmonization. I'm going to break these up if those are two words that are a little strange. But anyway, I spoke in another video earlier about relativity, and then Chelsea brought up the idea of seasickness. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's like, what is relativity? And it's interesting because what is happening is we are harmonizing all the time, psychologically, physically, and all of these kind of things. So when do we figure it out, like that we're actually have all of these components that are trying to harmonize our reality and keep us focused in particular points of view? Well, one of those things that Chelsea brought up was seasickness. In seasickness, like we have the basis of balance physically being on dry land. So for some people, they get into a boat and they get seasick. Well, what's actually happening is that their relativity point, physically or psychologically, is not balanced anymore. Their relativity has changed. Their physical experience is now like, I'm walking on this solid earth right now, and then all of a sudden that changes. And I'm going up, then I'm going down. I'm going up, and I'm going down. Some of you are already getting seasick. And and that's the whole idea. I have a hard time understanding seasickness. I've never really experienced seasickness before. But this was such a great thing to think about when we're thinking about relativity. And the whole idea of understanding we are constantly relative. We are constantly tethered to things. And physically, we're tethered to being on what we call solid ground. And then we go out into the ocean on a boat, and now we're not in that equalization state. So our point of relativity, what we are measuring ourselves against, is different. So on land, solid, know where my feet are going to land. Everything's, very balanced. And then I go on to the ocean, and now I'm measuring from a different point of view. My body is connecting with the world in a different way. So we want to explore more, and we might do this in the next Lenzafarian Church Sunday, and talk about this idea of relativity and how we can start putting our focus into, like, what are you going to do when you're out of the egoverse? It's like, well, let's start paying attention to where we find harmony. And like, why are things so crazy? Why is there discombobulation? And maybe we can look at what's the root. What are we relative? What are we holding ourselves in frequency of? And this conversation can go into a gazillion different explorations. So anyway, I just thought it was so important. She just brought up this great point about seasickness and harmony and equalization, then was talking about like the 0 point. We have to find then a 0 point. So what they tell people that have seasickness is watch the horizon. So what are you doing? You're creating another relativity position within your environment to try to allow your body to find that equalization and then harmonize with your new experience. So perhaps we can do this philosophically, we can do this psychologically, we can do this in a lot of different ways. In fact, this could be out to, like, if you want to do extreme sports and you want to, like, you have to figure out when somebody's trying to, let's say, perform a motorcycle trick, like, they understand why lots of people can't do it. So they have to figure out a way to get it done. And so they have to figure out a way of changing the relativity, the experience, so that they can move into the experience, harmonize with the experience, and complete it. So if you imagine this is how we could look at reality from the point of how do we find these new relativity points? How do we find things that we want to experience? Can we create those kind of experiences by looking at, well, like, relatively, how do I have to see it? How do I have to feel it? How do I have to experience if I want it to show up in my life? Anyway, this was a fun little exploration, and I can't wait to do more on this.